Good evening and welcome to the Jamaica Technology and Digital Alliance Tech Talk Tuesdays. I am your host this evening, Alexia Beckford, Program Manager, and we have a great evening planned for you. The topic this evening is championing digital leadership, and with me tonight is Stacey Hines and Kemal Brown.
Hi
No,
guys.
right. Stacy is a Caribbean tech sector leader with over 18 years of experience, recently selected as one of the top 50 Caribbean women in tech. She is the immediate past president of the JTD, a nonprofit which serves tech professionals in Jamaica and its diaspora, as well as the wider society by helping to advance Jamaica's digital transformation and economy. Stacey is also the group strategic planner at the ICD Group, a Caribbean global investment firm. She is a business and leadership transformation expert and coach. Stacey recently founded Epic Transformation, a technology-focused workforce transformation company. Welcome, Stacey.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Alexia. And I'm excited to be here and have this conversation. Always great to be sitting on the Tech Talk Tuesday stage.
Great. And Kemal Brown is the founder and chairman of the Digital Global Group of Companies, with subsidiaries spanning communications, real estate, venture capital, technology, and finance. Through his principal approach to leadership, strategy, finance, and innovation, he has created a firm footing for expansion for multi-million dollar companies which have unlocked value regionally. He is a speaker and consultant on communications, business, digital transformation, management, and leadership, and has delivered over 100 plus presentations across 4 continents. He recently became a member of the Forbes Business Council. Welcome, Kemal.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Of course, happy
You
to
know,
be among stars like Stacy.
okay, and I just want to mention, at the JT, there's want to give a huge big up to our IPP Stacey Hines, who is a fellow of the BCS, the Chartered Institute of IT. So if
Oh,
she's not a fellow, that is a big accomplishment among so many more accomplishments to come.
see, that's why I said she's a superstar.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Actually, I think if ever I've been proud in my life, other than being able to give birth to children, I think my fellow is definitely kind of up there. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks for that, Alexi.
All right,
And
definitely.
welcome, Kimal. I'm excited to have a chat with you. I'm
Oh,
brethren from a long time.
indeed, donkey years, as they say. And
Yeah.
just a note in terms of my early video being off, my MacBook was about to die. I just realized because yeah, so that's why I switched locations.
Okay. Okay. No
Okay,
problem.
great. You're looking great, but I feel like it's stars among stars, like the top in digital leadership. So, what is your leadership philosophy, and how is that incorporated into your approach to solving organizational challenges?
Hmm. Kemal, you want to lead on that?
No man, let's go with the ladies first.
I knew you were going to do that. Well, it's interesting, because I think that my leadership philosophy has definitely evolved, and it's evolved because I have moved from being in C-suite corporate where I'm responsible for leading just inside of one company to then being a part of leading a group of companies, right? And then now leading my own company. So I think as I have grown as a leader, that philosophy has shifted quite significantly. But ultimately, I suppose, what I would consider a core philosophy that I'm now using as a guiding principle, and it's based on just the different things that I've learned in the different ways that I've played leader, so to speak. And that is that leadership is really as much about being as it is doing. And in order for us to succeed in the space of being and doing, we have to get the tools to live, love, and lead from a place of wellness. Yeah.
That's deep.
Very.
Yeah, from an organizational perspective, in terms of how that is woven into how I support organizations, I would say that a lot of what I focus on now revolves around my core programs, which are a combination of high performance and conscious leadership. So the high performance aspect of the organizational support that we offer is focused on delivering outcomes, because I think a lot of times, when you go into companies and you're supporting them with strategy in particular, which is my background in most recent times, everybody wants to visualize and they want to plan and they want the big dreams and they want, all of that stuff, right? But then to actually get the outcomes created is usually where you find the gap. So you have a lot of leaders that look great and sound great, but they can't get their team members to deliver outcomes. So that's where the high performance piece comes in. And the consciousness piece comes in because I am a shining example of what not to do when it comes to leading and not taking care of yourself. So I went through my own breakdown process and recognized that I was spending so much time focused on the doing. And you tend to compartmentalize it, right? You tend to compartmentalize work and think work is work and you're going to get it done. And, all the other things in life are kind of out there. But you're one person, and it does, one area of your life does affect the other, even when you think it doesn't. And so the conscious leadership part is about maintaining that self-awareness and looking at leadership through a holistic lens. Are you living well? Are you loving well? And eventually you will lead well if other areas are also in balance. Yeah.
Wow, Kemal.
Well, I can't follow those words, Well,
I'm sure you can.
much of what Stacey said is, completely factual, and I completely agree. In terms of my leadership ethos or my philosophy, well, one, it stems from my core philosophy, which is Kaizen. Of course, speaking to perpetually getting better. And a large part of, what leadership means to me is really being authentic, right? Authenticity manifests in many ways. The first one is being the person that you say that you are, and that ties into the organization in terms of getting organizational alignment, because oftentimes a leader has not necessarily done the necessary soul searching to really decide, am I even the right person for this job, in this position? Is this my industry? Do my interests and skill sets align? So there's a lot of introspection that I think will manifest in any great leader, and really authentically looking at what your strengths are, your weaknesses are, and where within the organization you can fill those gaps, because no individual can run a company. Companies are essentially groups of people, right? And the team that we always expose as leaders is so very important. Jim Collins speaks to the fact that the bus can only go in the direction it needs to go when you have the right persons in the right seats. Imagine if you have a passenger being a driver. Some executives need to understand that sometimes you need to step back. This might not be your area of expertise, And I think in addition to being an authentic leader, I'm a value-based leader. So DGMs are digital, right? Its core values is spelled out in its name. D for dedication, I for integrity, G for gratitude, I for innovation, T for teamwork and trust, and A for attention to detail. And we literally live those values. Early in my career as a corporate transformation specialist, we do a lot of vision value alignment. And one of the things that people realize, you might have the vision on the wall and the mission statement on the wall, but no one was living the values. So you come into organizations and the leaders, they're like, yes, this is our vision, this is our mission, in line with what Stacey was saying. But there's no one to actually drive the tangible outputs, the goals, look at what are the small tasks that manifest into the larger tasks. So at DGM, I really try to, and the team, we hold ourselves accountable. We've actually broken down what are the behaviors tied to each value that will lead to the eventual goal. And so you'll find people in the company holding each other accountable using the values. Hey, not enough attention to detail was deployed here. Hey, you're not being dedicated enough. You leave at 5 and you had the thing to finish. Where's the gratitude for being here, for waking up this morning? This is actually the language that has kind of been born in the organization. And I think whether you're leading your own company or leading another company, or even being a director, chairman, whatever it is, whatever the dispensation, it's so important to understand who you are, be authentic, and have visions, values, missions that are driving your goals forward, so that you can synthesize success. Because I don't believe success is something you buck up in, right? It's something that through synthesis, through bringing something here, bringing something here, bringing something here. And of course, as Earl Nightingale says, success is, the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Everyone's version of success will be different. That's why leadership is, by its very nature, individual journey, but at the same time, a team sport, because you have to know yourself before you can impart that vision to others. And so, yeah, I think that pretty much encapsulates my philosophy. Clearly tied to Kaizen. I'm big on personal development. Everybody knows that I read books. I do the whole works, right? Everything they tell me to do as a leader, you do it. And I think, the last point I'll end on is a leader must also learn to follow. It's not always about being out front. Sometimes you have to step back and let persons guide you, right? You might have the vision, but you hire smart people for a reason. And it's essential to let their wings, let them spread their wings and fly and take you further than you probably can go yourself, or probably know how to go. So yeah, that's pretty much my leadership philosophy.
Well, I love those 2 points about, allowing members of your team to lead on certain opportunities or certain tasks, but also I think what Stacey said was super important, because we get so caught up in work and task. I can speak for myself that sometimes when I have deadlines, and I know Stacey can attest to this, that I will just work without taking a holistic approach and being like, okay, you have to step back now, Alexia. So love those 2 points. And on that note, as C-suite leaders, how did you manage to navigate the challenges and demands that came with digitally transforming your organization?
Yeah, so it's a tricky question again. And I shouldn't say tricky, meaning just I'm trying to figure out which hat to wear, right? Because when I think about JTDA,
yes,
we had to go through, that was literally 2 years of going through a digital transformation process. Maybe I'll use the Rollout Group as an example, because we have so many different companies that are part of the group and that we're going through transformation. And quite honestly, while digital transformation is a buzz now, and Kemal can attest to this, this is something that's been happening for a very long time. My first go around with digital transformation was when companies were switching to Windows 95. And that's but I think we forget that the only thing that's constant is change, right? And so we are forever in transformation. It's just now we are paying more the attention that we're paying really closely is around technology and utilizing technology as the lever for that transformational journey, right? And it's at the forefront, not where it was just kind of in a back room with IT. So I think for me, I actually have an underlying philosophy around transformation in general, and it's that transformation is created twice. First in the mind and then in reality. And it actually comes from a statement that I heard first from Mary Morrissey, where she said, everything is created twice, first in the mind and then in reality. And so I feel that with the dawn of digital transformation, this is just another opportunity for us to really think about what it is that we're creating as organizations, and take each of our companies through that process of really conceptualizing not just the tech, but the people, the process, and the technology, like that 360 perspective that will ultimately get you to the destination that you're trying to arrive at. When it came to serving multiple entities that are a part of a larger group, I think the primary focus for us was really around how do we ensure that we are creating success in a way that is sustainable for our organizations and the people that are the ones that are going to be making these organizations great. So, who are those people? It's the persons that are the fabric of the company itself. So, as Kamal said earlier, companies are just groups of people. It's the persons that we are serving, so our customers who are relying on us for products and services. And then it's the community that we're impacting, right? So when I think about digital transformation, I think about it through those exact same lenses. If we're creating transformation, it happens twice. First in the mind. So when I'm conceptualizing and I'm working with companies to conceptualize what the impact of digital transformation is going to be, it has to take into consideration all the touch points. And then now you can start to think about the bumps that are going to come in the road as you start to now actualize what you have now conceptualized, right? Because when you start the reality part of that process, that's when you're going to hit the bumps and the turns and all of the challenges, etc. However, hitting the bumps and the turns, and as I like to call them, the currents or the winds of change, are a necessary part of the transformation process. And when you get into that space, it actually is supporting you. It's almost like guideposts, supporting you in getting to where you want to get to, identifying what's working, what's not working, and allowing you better access to the things that are working. Tools that you may attract, you never thought you'd attract, people and support systems like Digital and what they're doing at Digital, right? Like Epic and what I'm doing at Epic, right? Yeah. And so it takes a more I like to consider a more holistic view of transformation than I feel has been happening. So I'm going to toss over to Kemal because I think this really should be more of a discussion as opposed to just one point of question. Go ahead. Yeah.
I only have one thing to say. Ditto. No, funny enough, Alexia, when we were speaking earlier, the little introduction when we were, doing a test, I literally said, "What's this?" I mean, it's great. It's just seeing great alignment in our minds, and that just vindicates, that we're on the right path at Digital, because I literally said that transformation, and as we put it now, digital transformation is not about technology.
Yeah,
technology is only the logical evolution of tools that we've been using since inception.
Yeah.
People would have said we were transforming digitally when the hammer was invented, right? That would have been really transforming industry.
Or light.
Right? So, as a member of the World Economic Forum, right? And looking at the fourth industrial revolution, something that we've spoken about, it's the fourth in a long line of transformation.
Yeah.
So we have to be conscious that what is happening now, as Stacey said, is only change, which is the only true constant, right? And if we are not adapting to change itself just in our lives, I'm a stoic as well. I'm big on stoicism. Stoicism was a large part of my wellness journey, Stacey, right? Becoming a stoic. And one of the things that stoicism speaks to and it exposes heavily is accepting reality. Kodak had accepted that the digital camera, that things change. If they just accepted that things change, things are going to advance through technology. Markets rise and destroy. Markets rise and fall. People change. All things that begin end. Fundamental nuances around life. We'd probably be having Kodak phones, not iPhones, right?
Yeah. Look at that.
It's real. And so in the context of, how organizations should adapt, it's really all things, it's funny. Stacey, you said that quote as well. I was very aligned with everything you're saying. So because I have a quote, one of the Kemal Brown originals, that says essentially, mind equals matter, not mind over matter. Cognitive permutations literally equal reality.
Absolutely.
Alexa knows me a long time ago when I was hosting workshops for. I had one of my ex-girlfriends cook, little things, and I would have a workshop for like $3,500 Jamaican for like 10 people, 10 of my students back when I was a lecturer, and I just make it on a Saturday. And from those times, I told her a lot of my plans, and she just before the call like, Kemal, it manifested, it happened. I'm like, well, with the mind, hard work, diligence, and of course, an aptitude to receive change, not reject it, all things are possible. And I think as leaders, one of the main things that we have to do is be receptive to change, understand that literally change carries us along our whole life. We came out of the womb and we keep growing.
Yeah.
Right? We keep changing. And we literally changed. My hair is now black. It's gonna go gray. So I might have some hot boy, sexy gray locks in a few years, right?
Let's not talk about gray, okay? Can we just not?
All right, 25-year-olds, things, you know. But yeah, I mean, the reality is we focus a lot on technology, and we're so scared, you know, about the technology, and especially persons that are non-technical, they're further scared, you know, like
Yeah.
coding and all these different things. And it's just really understanding that this is just another manifestation of change. And by virtue of that, it's not that you cannot learn about it, it's only adding to your skill set and your tool set. As you said, Windows 98, we now have what? Edge, Windows Edge, or I don't even know because I'm a Mac guy now.
I'm on a Mac.
So, you know, and even that is changed. There was a time when I would say, oh, how dare you? I would never use an Apple device.
Me too. Me
I'm like 10
too.
now, right? And so my point is, you know, let's focus more on the human side of things as leaders. And if you focus more on the human side, you're not going to be so conscious about what you don't know because you know that you can hire someone that knows.
Yeah.
If that person can effectively guide you, and of course you understand that life is all about perpetual growth, perpetual advancement, Kaizen, you can go out and learn the information, look at the tools. And also, not all businesses can be digitized, right? Not all businesses can be digitized. However, all businesses can benefit from, even if it's just in the back office, can benefit from
Digital tools.
services,
Yes.
digital approaches to doing things.
Yeah.
You know, it's just the way of the world, and it's better to embrace versus reject. And even if it is that you're still, you know, a bit insecure around it, nothing is wrong with that. Insecurity is only knowledge unseen. You just haven't gotten the knowledge yet, right?
Mhm.
It's about going out and getting that information to really drive your ambition, your goals, you know, forward, because it's not stopping.
Yeah.
You know, they've said, you know, any advanced form of technology looks like magic. Like a really advanced form of technology looks like magic. And if you went back 100 years, let's not even go that far, and you took a picture. When was the Salem witch trials? Maybe the 1800s. Say 200 years. If you took a picture on a smartphone, if you went back and you showed it to somebody, they'd say you're working with the devil because they stole
Yes.
it.
They'd burn you at the stake.
In Salem,
I'd be a witch.
right? You'd be
I
a
will
witch.
lose my head.
All right. And so the reality is, fear is a natural emotion for when you don't understand. And true leadership is about overcoming that fear in the furtherance of the advancement of your organization and, of course, the people within said organization.
Yeah, and actually, I think Kemal that would have answered like the next one coming up about assisting customers who are unfamiliar,
Oh,
you know, with adapting, because I think one of the things that it's not just the customers, it's businesses as well, as you
Yep.
said, who are unfamiliar with the adaptation is just understanding that we're all living the tech lifestyle. Like, I mean, it's just a part of life, right? Tech is life now.
grandma has a
and-
smartphone.
yeah, everybody has a smartphone. In Jamaica, we have 1.5 phones per person based on, you know, the data, right?
Yeah.
And if companies can recognize themselves as tech companies, I know that's one of the things in my entrepreneur training that I do, wherever I'm supporting, you know, the different accelerators or whatever, and it will invite me to come and talk about digital transformation for entrepreneurs. And it's just, you know, no matter what business you're in a tech business. You're either a tech-enabled business or you are a business that's providing the technology solutions, products and services. Right?
Yeah, I love that.
So everybody is in tech. And if we can embrace that and be excited about it and think about what possibilities exist, you know, well, what can I create? I didn't realize I was a tech company. Man, what can I do with that? You know?
It's about mindset. Going back to it's really about the mindset, because you are a construction company. Nothing is stopping you from creating a software to remotely manage your fleet and sell that software as a subscription. And then people in the United States now buy a subscription. And look at that, you're a Facebook. Right? So I think it's really just, you know, adjusting the mindsets, as you are speaking to Stacey, that, you know, being tech enabled. And that's a great, you know, that term is very cool. I'm going to use it. Tech enabled versus, you know, the one providing the tech. Because you're right, we're all using technology. Telephone is technology. A telephone is technology. It's just that the tech that people are scared of is further along on the continuum of innovation. And that's really, you know, and I think for customers, just to continue on the narrative, information. Like I've said this for about a decade now. Once you have access to the internet, a comfortable enough home, and a computer, you can learn anything. Right? You can learn anything. And it really comes down to discipline and dedication at that point. Do I see this as important enough? Trust me, when somebody, the first thing people nowadays do when they have a little pain, they go on Google and search and find out that they're dying
Yes.
in 2 minutes.
Yes.
WebMD.
Right? They find out they're dying in 2 minutes and regret searching immediately, right? So what if we took that same aptitude? I mean, I'm looking at, I run a digital company, I run a digital marketing and technology company. We had our genesis in social media. So many people are just using technology in ways that do not necessarily advance. Nothing is wrong with entertainment and fun and so on, but at some point you have to try to learn from these things.
Yeah.
Information is flowing through these platforms. And if you can just grab onto some of it, it can literally transform your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Just give it
I
space.
wanted to,
Because
I
we say
just
it's a
wanted to ask a
conversation.
quick question.
Sure.
We have seen a prime example of that with banking. I know persons have their grandmothers or baby boomers who, when it comes to banking and, using apps, they're not as welcoming. So what would you suggest that some companies do when they're trying to move from a more in-house to virtual? What are the steps you believe they should take, especially with those that age group?
Well, let me tackle this one. Let me see. I mean, the reality is this: along the adoption curve, you have the early persons, the early adopters, the evangelists, all the different persons, right? And of course, there are natural barriers to certain persons adopting certain types of technology. I would say everything must be done in phases. So, like banks, to use the banking example specifically, just abruptly closing a branch on grandma, it's thrusting her into digital transformation, which anybody being thrust into something is not necessarily, especially at that age, the best approach, right? Because you would accept that these persons would have been banking with the institution for some while, there should be a little bit more soft treatment in the context of facilitating in some way, shape, or form, even if it is somebody at a front desk to kind of help guide the person through and maintaining some level of physical records. The reality is time will naturally push everything digital. And you look at just the generational divide, right? Gen Z right now, my little sisters, my youngest sister, she communicates through emojis. That's her primary and GIFs and memes. And she's so good at it. And I run a creative age. I'm not as good as she is. Right? I'm not. And I can see that logically what search means to those individuals. It's not Google, it's TikTok, it's Instagram. That's how they're searching.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I think as businesses, banks, anyone, we have to be aware that the world is changing and we don't want to alienate anyone, right? And you don't want to abruptly make moves that dispassion, because you're serving customers. One of the main things is you are in customer service if you have a business, right? And you don't want to ever alienate your customers or create negative sentiments that could have been, kind of sheltered with a bit of softness, which is, skills training, maybe sending a representative to church on Sundays. I don't know what the banks want to do. There are many different strategies, right? That's where grandma is domiciled most of the time.
Yes.
And kind of having them speak there. There are many strategies and tools, but I believe in sensitization, right? Building awareness of what this will mean ahead of you making the change. All change must be staged and in phases, as I said. So sensitization, right? From sensitization, you have a bit of training and skill building. It is necessary to build skills in any ecosystem that you're pushing forward, right? You have the sensitization, then you have the skill building, then you have the phased implementation where you go along the adoption curve and you have the early adopters and you kind of move them along the line. And then you have those at the back that are the stragglers, and you see as best as possible how you can maintain infrastructure to serve them. If it is that they never, because grandma is not necessarily going to change, but you know that, and I don't mean to be morbid, right? But the reality is persons will transition, and over time everyone will be technology enabled from just the inception. You create a framework and you let time do the work. And I don't mean to be morbid, I didn't say what I was saying, but you get what I'm saying, right? So it's just a reality. It's a reality of time. I mean, if you gave a caveman a cell phone, they'll hit you in the head with it, right? So
yes,
it's just really adapting. Over to you, Stace.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is a huge missing. So going back to what I was saying before, when we were talking about what we have to consider with transformation, and it's people. And if we are really in the business of serving, because that's ultimately what you get paid for, right? It is how well and how long you serve, right? That's something that Jim Rohn talks about a lot. You know, your income and the way that you experience your life is equivalent to the service that you put forward. And what I think is missing a lot in today's transforming world in the space of going digital in Jamaica, I'm not necessarily au fait with the rest of the Caribbean, but certainly in Jamaica, is really looking beyond what is cool with the tech and making sure that we are serving the needs of the persons. My mom told me a story last week that she was in the bank. I won't say which one. And she went into the bank because she had to go in to do something. It's required for her to go in. And I was actually like, really, you had to go in there to do that? And she was like, yes. And she said, while she was there were like 4 old ladies that were in a line trying to get some support for something, because apparently there is a feature that it puts you in a loop if you're not really familiar. And my thought process was, why is it it's summer? Why is it that we don't have several interns who won't cost the bank a bag of money serving these senior citizens who are invariably not going to be as tech savvy? It's low cost, it's efficient, and it hits the service button, satisfaction button. And I have a grandma. I'm sure everybody in the bank have a grandma, living or not, right? And we love our grandmas. Like, we don't want them to be suffering. And I can just imagine being in the bank for hours, can't figure out how to use a tech. And so I think we need to do better.
Inclusivity.
Yeah, we really need to do better. When they came up with the DEI conversation, a lot of the discussion around it has been about gender and race. But we can't forget that there is also age, and that we are at a time where the world is rapidly changing. Technology is growing exponentially, and we have never had this many overlapping generations at one time. I mean, we're reaching out with back at Delta. I mean, by the time you finish, you know.
and you're completely accurate. Yeah, I mean,
right?
Stuff. Yeah, you're right. The rapid medical technology is making people live longer.
Yes, right. Die longer if you look at it through that lens. But yeah.
It's interesting. It's interesting one. Die longer. You hit him with some gems, man. I got with us. But yeah, no, and I mean, definitely, Stacey, I completely concur. I think, the human element is missing from our digital transformation.
Yeah.
The human element. I mean, abruptly use it or die.
Yeah.
Next day, you use a bank book, you get in charge. If you cash a check,
like that's just, there's just no. I mean, I can see where that was in some kind of big meeting, and it's like, boy, we're having some challenges with this % of our customers. All right, that's it. Just cut it off. We're gonna just start charging. Like, somebody just make that decision, and it's like, okay, let's go. So I think we have to be more. We have to be more innovative and creative, and choose to serve. And I don't think it has to be hard. I just don't know that we are necessarily taking a service approach. You know how great we are at that, right?
Right. Stacey, going back to your early point about conscious leadership.
Yeah.
Are our leaders actually conscious? I mean,
well, that would have to be a whole other live, Kemal.
Right? I have a very it's funny when you're young and you're on a path to growth, and you're pushing and you're really doing everything you can. And as I'm saying, Jamaica is a fight you get. You know what I'm saying? It's a fight you get. It's not facilitation. Right? It's not to help you. It's why how we can stress his brother out till him don't continue, but have Kemal Brown. I don't stop. From a problem customer for many of our banks. And I mean, the reality is it's really about being conscious. It's about having that conscious leadership. As you said, if they're in the meeting, someone should have said, hey, what about my grandma? What about my grandma?
And let's use the data. And let's use the data to support us, right? If we have maybe that's what it is. Maybe they're like, well, we only have 2,000 senior citizen customers, and it's only making us, $100,000 a year. So that's not enough value for us. But what about the brand value,
Indeed.
right?
Tangible.
There are other ways that you can calculate ROI in that regard,
In the
So
context of the family, if you don't know who that grandmother is,
exactly.
Yes.
suppose
Yeah.
the son and the daughter is like two of your
Yeah.
500 million US dollar customers, and you turn
Yeah.
away their grandma.
Yeah.
Money's gone Monday morning. That money
Yeah.
gone. I can tell you. Because we negate the human element until it becomes real. And what do I mean by that?
Yeah.
Typically, unfortunately, you're only a number until you know somebody that you can call, and then it becomes
Yes.
real.
Yes.
Right?
I don't know if it's an island thing. I don't know if it's an island thing.
I don't know, but
I
there's
mean,
still-
what I will say is that I haven't, and Kemal, you've worked globally as well. So there are some nuances that we experience in the Caribbean that I really don't experience elsewhere.
Yeah.
And for sure, that service element is one of them that we definitely have an underserved approach to service, unless you know somebody that knows somebody or that can get you in
It's
trouble or some right.
Fortunate.
It is.
Fortunate. And I mean, I always think about that. What if I could not call this person? What if I had not built up enough?
Yeah.
Capital? I can only
Yeah.
imagine one particular bank that share price is very bad right now. I said to them, listen, if this is how you treat your okay-ish customers, I'm concerned. I mean, and I mean, I think at some point you said the data, we have to be careful of data. As much as we move into the, technology move deeper into the technology age, data can also belie reality.
Yeah.
Data cannot, just like you said, says, oh, we don't only get this much money from them, but you forget
Right.
human
Right.
element.
Yeah.
And so data has to be matched with conscious leadership, as you said.
Yes, absolutely. Alexia?
Totally. I totally agree with that. Like, I'm just listening, like, whoa. There's so many gems right here about conscious leadership and serving, and I think that is so important, and that is missing. And digital transformation or digital leadership is not just about, digital. It's about persons and adapting. And I think if you take it from that standpoint, sometimes a lot of persons hear digital transformation, digital leadership, and it's a scary word to them because digital is in front of it. But just the way Stacey and yourself present it, it's like there's change, there's life, there's death. These things happen. So just adapt.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Right? So we have seen a shift in how organizations are structured, where there is more of a horizontal flow of control than historical vertical flow of control. How has technology, digital transformation contributed to that? And how does this affect the decision-making process of organizations?
Well, what's funny about this, and it's interesting that that Kemal mentioned the Kaizen method earlier. I think what we see is a fluid change in organizational structure. I don't know that I necessarily believe that we've gone from vertical to horizontal or more flat.
Yeah.
I just think that we may have more visibility into organizations that have taken a different approach than a traditional approach. And I think that we will continue to see an evolution of different types of structures in organizations where it becomes more matrix because that's what works for that type of entity. And in some instances, that vertical structure does work better for some entities, depending on what it is that they are creating and who it is that they are serving. I think in any structure that you have, technology is an enabler. And that's what it is. Technology enables you to achieve the creation of this vision that you've created. And I and I feel that the more exponential growth we see, the continued exponential growth we'll see, we'll have more magic happening. And that's the part I love. I love the magic. I love it when I use tools just for myself in my own little company. And I'll use a tool today, like SurveyMonkey as an example. I've been using SurveyMonkey since before I lived in Jamaica, like God, I don't know, 2006, 7, right? And now I use SurveyMonkey, and I'm just like, oh, they just put in this new little feature, and I don't have to do this anymore. And
Yeah.
you go through this kind of experience. That's how I experience it, and I look forward to the innovation that shows up in the way I am able to do business better and able to serve my organization better, regardless of the structure, right? So that part of it, I really enjoy. Kemal?
Sure, I think that's a deep point, Stacey. Lots of gems as usual in terms of just the visibility, right? Because persons might be saying, "Yeah, man," but it's really, are we really changing, or is it just the Silicon Valley Forbes list and all the different people that we're kind of pushing out in the media, and they're not talking about the failures of some of these models? You know, Michael Leachin, one of my mentors, he says that you only invest in companies where there's autocratic leadership, meaning a very strong leader that knows the business. That doesn't mean that you don't give an ear to your team, but decision making must be singular on the basis that indecision costs too much. Now, I don't necessarily only agree with that model, but as Stacey said, there's a ton of organizational structures. I haven't really seen horizontal, to be honest with you. The C-suite
Like
is
flat.
always, the
Flat. I
C-suite
haven't really
is
seen
always, and tragic stories. Zappos, as you know, had a structure like that, and the founder committed suicide. Very successful company, acquired by Amazon. That was a company that was very experimental with many different, and I'm not drawing any synergies between suicide
and the horizontal structure.
and horizontal. Right? Let me just put that point out there for some of the pundits that are a bit, But the point is, the reality is, organizations adjust and adapt based on what works best for the organization, the people within the organization, and the goals that they have to achieve. Also, there's also flex. So there's something called wartime CEO versus peacetime CEO, right? Peacetime CEO, guys, let me hear everyone's opinions. Right?
Yes, very democratic. Very democratic.
Very like, you see, wartime CEO?
Yeah, different.
It's a different modus
Go
operandi.
there, blow up that.
Blow up that place. Fire those 500 people. It's real. So I think, once again, going back to the change narrative, we have to be very conscious that things flex. I mean, organization at 10 employees, organizations function very differently at 50, very differently at 250, very differently at 1,000 and 30,000 and onwards and up there. Because guess what? The old models just don't work.
Absolutely.
This is not tied to digital transformation. It's tied to people transformation. Some persons need a lot of oversight. You know that you have to have a manager over that person, right? Even though they're good executors. As you scale, that doesn't work. That means you need to change the people, because everybody can't be watching everybody. It's a nexus of leadership, organizational development, all of these things. But I think, one of the things you just have to be conscious of is that an org chart is just that. It's a chart. That doesn't even mean that the persons play like that within the organization.
Yeah.
You might think it's the CEO making the decisions, it's the COO running the show, and the CEO is just up here as so. One note I wanted to make about something as simple as Zoom, and clearly I don't know if any studies have been done on something like this in terms of workplace dynamics, but in a Zoom chat, everyone has the same screen size. Everyone is equal on a Zoom chat. Maybe somebody should look into this, right? Does that affect persons willing to speak more in a meeting versus when you're around the boardroom in person, intimidated, and the leader's at the head of the table,
right?
And the thing is there, and then you're at the back somewhere and you're kind of sheepish. Does it affect input? So is the technology actually facilitating more input and collaboration in organizations versus taking away, which people are assuming, at least between the C-suite and the rest of the team? Because teams normally collaborate, but does it mean that I'm going to speak more in a meeting? Maybe, I don't know.
Interestingly, it's so funny that you raised that, because there was an article that came out in Yahoo Finance that my president shared, where the JP Morgan Chase CEO was saying that, Zoom has killed collaboration and diversity, and that we're leading by Hollywood Squares. I don't know if you remember that old time game show, but I thought he made some very interesting points. I mean, he seems more like an autocratic leader to me.
So that's Jamie Dimon, right?
Yes, Dimon.
Oh,
yes.
And
I took the point though that while I would have to see the data to really kind of gauge the productivity piece, From a culture and diversity piece and really dealing with that inclusion aspect, I definitely think there's some merit there. So when you talk about the structure of the organization, we also have to recognize that we now have this digital structure that was introduced quite significantly because of the pandemic, where some companies are completely virtual, right? And that leadership is taking place, through technology, through cameras and so forth. But it still does not replace a general reporting structure, which may very well be vertical, right? But it does impact how you relate to each other as teams. So that was a great point that you raised, Kamal.
Yeah, and to add on to that point, we speak about digital transformation a lot, but the drawbacks, the Great Resignation, it was not by chance.
Oh my gosh!
After COVID.
Oh my gosh!
It wasn't just tied to people not wanting to come back to work. It was tied to, in many ways, persons realizing that, okay, one, authority is not distributed digitally, as you just said. It's just not distributed digitally. When you're in the presence of your CEO in an office, doors closed behind you, it's a different level of respect than here's this talking head, as you just said. So, and also it's in many ways killed the culture. I mean, unless you're a company that is doing hybrid or has sports days and all these fun.
Yeah, you have to actually now intentionally do cultural activities in order to maintain that connection.
There's no more water cooler conversation. I mean, the virtual. I just told HR, listen, we need to go Jangas and buy the people some shots. Like,
tell me when you're going.
Right, I will. So, I mean, you really have to try, because you realize there's less stickiness. That's what the Great Resignation is. You don't have your friend, your work friend. You're not going to leave because you have a best friend. And they're there. No, it's just like, just these people I work with. It's not, there's no stickiness. And that is something why it does happen left and right, the Great Resignation. And this is not just a feature of income, because it's happening both domestically and globally. It's
everywhere. It's everywhere and every level.
Of course, agnostic. Indeed, and every level. I mean, I've seen some resignations you'd never see 5-10 years ago. From C-suite executives. They would just not there for they leave after 2 years. That's unheard of. Like long-term succession planning when you're headhunting. It's just, you just don't see this. And I've seen it domestically, globally. One of the CEOs, very famous, he left the hedge fund to go start a farm somewhere. People are, I think what it has done is COVID has created a shock. Like, oh my God, I have to start.
Yes, like wake up and live,
Yeah, wake up and live. I have to start living the life that I want, and it has created other challenges for organizations. Domestically, auditing firms don't have people because the big five globally are hiring them away. Medical practitioners domestically, it has made the world smaller. People just feel like fluidity in terms of movement is easier. So there are a lot of psychological impacts and nuances that we haven't really explored as well in terms of the organization. Why are people leaving? It can't just be income. It can't just be why are people staying. It can't just be income. It can't be, is it that this person's psychometric evaluation shows something different? And I mean the data guides all, right? But at the same time, you make decisions based on your humanity. So data is important to make decisions based on your humanity.
Yeah.
Agreed. Some really great points here, really.
Yes, Alex, I look at the time and I'm like, one more question. That's it.
Yes. Hold on. How can businesses strategically plan ahead in this digital era?
Well, I guess maybe because I'm an old-time practitioner, I just think you do what you normally do, but with a bit more agility and flexibility. I think it's really important for us to not toss out the baby with the bathwater. It's almost like they think, it's digital era now, we have to just start everything new. I think there are some disciplines that remain. So the process of strategic thinking and planning, I think, is one of those things. You do want to think far ahead. I don't necessarily align with some strategic practitioners who say, yeah, man, do the 10-year plan. And that's because I'm a technologist. 10 years from now, it's going to be very different.
Floating bars and things.
Right? So I don't know what that's going to be. So I think there are some aspects of the discipline that shift, but I definitely think that you should have a strategic planning rhythm that is consistent, agile, and replicable, as well as being flexible. You have to keep yourself open to the shifts and the changes. I'm not a huge fan of balanced scorecard. Because I do think it is significantly attached to a time that has passed. However, there are aspects to the balanced scorecard that I think are still relevant today in the planning process, and we should utilize that. I'm definitely more aligned with an agile approach to planning, which is the OKR methodology. I think if you have a big dream or a big vision in OKR methodology, they call it your North Star. You have this North Star, you can then pull in aspects of your core strategic components, the people side, the learning and development side, the customer side, the market side, the financial side, pull that in and then iterate in a way that is going to start showing you results faster. So you're not waiting until you reach the 5-year mark, God forbid the 10-year mark, before you decide whether the strategy work or not work, right? And even if you have a 5-year outlook to say this is where we want to be in 5 years time, at the end of year 1, you know where you want to be to get to that 5 years. And then even further down, in 90 days, this is what I'm going to do. So I can it's like I'm following the Jesus breadcrumbs. I know that this little step is going to get me closer to that. And if not, I have to pivot. And if the pandemic did not teach strategists that particular point, yet you need to go back to strategy school. That's just my perspective.
Yeah. And no, definitely. I agree. Funny, I was watching as you were speaking, Stacey. I remember, and I want to speak to one thing, just add one point, culture. I was watching this series on Netflix, a documentary, like 2 nights ago or last night, I don't recall. Days just phasing into each other these days that I've been. So, and it was essentially looking at a Chinese company, the largest Chinese glass manufacturer, was started a US firm. So they did FDI, foreign direct investment, in the United States. They took over old Chrysler factory, remodeled it, spent $500 million US. And the Chinese chairman came over, and you see all the Americans, Caucasian Americans are like having to learn the thing and bowing. And I'm just like, this is interesting. But this is where the crux came. The efficiency that they were experiencing in China, they could not get out of the US workers. Why was that? In China, they had 2 days off per month. In the US, as the people land, they're like, union. The chairman is like, listen, if you want to remain VP, so I'm telling you, to remain VP, ensure this union thing doesn't come to pass. The union doesn't serve us, right? That's what the Chinese say. And eventually, of course, they start protesting, as Americans love to do.
Of course.
Some of them get fired. They brought the wage down. They actually cut their pay to the minimum, like $12 something for like factory workers. And they still cannot eke out the productivity that they get out of the Chinese workers. In China, they would line them up like army people.
Of course, it's a different type of culture.
In America, the guy came back and he's like, I'm going to try some of the things I learned. He's like, come guys, let's line up. Stand on that square over there. You want to see them on a bad eye. The brother catching, and people just like, we think him did, so.
Clearly, they've never heard the Peter Drucker.
Right?
They've never heard it.
Man. So culture is such an important nuance that people miss.
Oh, yeah.
And domestically, it's something we have to account for. Our Jamaicans are very productive. Efficiency is one of the hallmarks of DGM. And I can tell you our workforce is not equipped for it. The amount of training I do just to get people to understand why efficiency matters to your income, to my income, to our growth over time. The fact that if you finish one project today and we can get that same project done daily, we can earn on that project daily. And that is how we grow. That is how I can grant raises over time. Just these fundamental principles are just like moot. People don't necessarily understand the importance of certain things. And so technology has only exacerbated that. And I think put a lot of us culturally in Jamaica under stress because people want it like this now.
Yeah.
You can't say, oh, I'm late to work. Late to which work? You just roll over and grab a laptop, brother. Get up. You can't. There's the things, Then the next thing, one of the things that I think, it has changed is the reality that when persons used to leave work and got to burn off some steam, they more quitting on a Friday, right? But they go after them, have some drinks and them level out. There's no leveling out. You're at your home all day. You're stressed out. And I think also contributed. So, it's just important to contemplate culture in all the planning, and as agile and being, quick to pivot and iterate is essential because I wouldn't even plan beyond like 2.5 years at a high level. Yeah. At a high level, I won't even plan beyond 2.5 years. And clearly for manufacturing cycles, that's horrible. But most manufacturers, depending on the nature of the product you might be making, for example, domestically, Grace, people can always eat your food. You don't have to worry that hard, right? It's just your supply chain you need to kind of work out, if anything, like where you sell products to, right? Based on market, based on many things. But like manufacturers of like specialized goods, you have to be very careful and strategic because clearly, capital investments in manufacturing plants, 5 years to build it out.
Yeah.
You have to really know what's going on. Is there going to be demand for what you're doing? And so as much as technology enables the pace of our current change and the pace of the consumer adoption and the fact that consumers just change their minds so frequently gives rise and destruction to business. Look at Revlon. Rihanna destroyed Revlon. Revlon filed for bankruptcy. I never thought that would happen. When I saw the article, I was like, I don't know nothing about the makeup. But the point is, I know that brand for years. Like,
Yeah.
and Rihanna come in 2 years and mash up them thing, and Kylie Jenner come in 2 years and mash up them thing. So
Yeah.
we're gonna see a lot more Kodaks. We're gonna see a lot more.
Absolutely.
We're gonna
And
see a
I
lot-
don't, and I think there is a lot of denial about that. I think
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a lot of denial about that. So
Fashion over.
I enjoy the observation booth.
Mm.
You
I
know?
want to start short some stocks. That's what I need to get into. Because no man is coming. And I mean, Fashion Nova, I mean, just the fact that digital social media has forever changed the world and
Oh my God.
and change the
Agreed.
access to influence. Influence, if people aren't aware, is one of the purest forms of sales.
Yeah.
Not true influence. Because what do we do in general? When you're even asking somebody on a date, you're influencing that person's decision based on your rapport, based on whatever. And so the reality is, if you commodify that, it's one of the most powerful things. That's why you have Kevin Hart. He's opened a restaurant. He's doing it. Everybody has a tequila brand. Realize a brand is one of the most powerful things in a very decentralized, democratized world. I know you, I trust you, I buy from you.
Yeah.
And at very
No
small
like
scale
trust.
for business, yeah, man. And at the very small scale for just business people doing business, I think we need to stop doing it for likes and ensure that we are aligned though with all the people that because inauthenticity as well rings true in business. Many times you find businesses fail because of social media as well as much as they grow. One bad move, if you're inauthentic, you say you're the best service, but you treat people poorly. One bad move ends you. So everything is symbiotic, and it's just an appreciation of where the world is going. But also, there's a book that the title goes "Only the Paranoid Survive." It's an industry startup book. I don't remember who wrote it at this moment, but it speaks about the fact that listen, this guy in the company, he literally was just worried about everything. He was always just paranoid. What's gonna happen here? What's gonna happen here? Only the paranoid survive. And I mean, clearly, I'm not telling anyone to go to paranoia, but at least have an awareness that things will not always be done as they were done, and your business could be on the chopping block if you don't adapt quickly. And adapting quickly doesn't mean buying a Zoom subscription, right?
Yeah.
It means, is this business even going to be around? And really having those hard conversations. Is this business going to be around in 5 to 10 years? And how can I begin resource reallocation to start a little thing and go over and little by little.
Yeah.
Like Slack, for example, was the internal tool used by a company. They used it to communicate. It was never the product. It was only a tool they built.
Similar with Gmail.
Indeed.
Gmail was internal.
I know Slack is, my company can't run without it. So I think that says a lot. Yeah.
So agreed. Whoa, some major gems have been dropped tonight. I felt like I've learned so much, and I'm sure our viewers have learned so much as well. So just definitely want to thank Stacey and Kemal for giving us some words of wisdom that, listen, be a conscious leader, serve. Don't live for the likes, it serve and be adaptable to digital leadership. Digital, we're in the fourth industrial revolution. Digital is not new. You have your smartphone, you have TikTok, you have so many technologies out there. Just learn to adapt. It's life, it's death. You're just in between. Take it one step at a time. And Stacey also mentioned something really important. It's just taking a holistic approach to leadership, not just working yourself to the ground. And not to mention the Jesus breadcrumbs and the Jesus crumbs. Like, what is it that what is it that you're trying to accomplish? Little by little, things. It's a dynamic world. You probably studied in university a couple years ago when they talked about a 10-year plan. Kemal spoke about having at a high level and a 2.5-year plan. And I think that this is super important that, we get with the time, but we adapt, but we serve. and we truly, as leaders, we fulfill our purpose, whatever that purpose is, not just for likes, as Kemal said, but what is your purpose? What are you bringing? And when you bring value, then that will be rewarded. And most importantly, the culture in your organization is important. What culture are you developing? And if you have not checked out Digital Global Services, check out Digital and check out Stacy at Epic Transformation. I mean, these two are leading the stage for digital leadership in Jamaica, and not only Jamaica, the Caribbean. And I'm sure you can reach out to them. And if you are not a member, because these two persons right here are members of the Jamaica Technology and Digital Alliance, if you're not a member, what are you waiting on? Go on www.jtda.org and become a member. Look out for our newsletter. And I'm so glad that you tuned in with us, and we cannot wait to see you next week. Thank you so much for joining.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Everybody, take care.
Good one. Hope it was beneficial and value laden.
Yeah, bye.
Bye bye.